All right, everybody. I am excited to be back with Ivelisse. If you missed her personal story, it's a pretty incredible journey that she's been on in the organization that she started with her husband. You can find that at the link below because that really feeds into the topic that we are talking about today. But Ivelisse, thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So let's just dive right in. What is Believe Big? Let's start there.
Yeah, so Believe Big, it was formed by my husband and myself to help patients through that overwhelming process of treatment by helping to bridge the gap between conventional and complementary medicine to heal in all aspects of life, and not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well.
Awesome. So maybe let's talk history a little bit. Where did it start? Like what did you start doing as a part of Believe Big? And then we can talk about how that's transformed over the years.
Yeah. So as someone who has gone through cancer, experienced the broken system, I struggled with the wide range of emotions that many patients experience and the limited financial resources available. I wanted to change that. I wanted to do things differently. I wanted to help the cancer patients of today, but also helping to find a solution to help the cancer patients of the future. Mm-hmm. And I wanted actually to change the way that cancer was thought of and treated in the United States. And it initially started, honestly, with our Believe Mug program. And Jimmy and I were sitting in the waiting rooms at Hopkins in 2008. And as I looked around, it just seemed so heavy. And even though it was beautifully decorated, the people could not be kinder, the staff. It just was this heaviness. And as I looked around, you would just see the concern on people's faces of what the scans were going to be showing and what they had just heard from their oncologists. And just the fear that was upon them was just unbelievably heavy as I looked around. And I remember just telling Jimmy, I was like, God has us here for a reason, and we need to bring hope into this dark place. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know yet, but let's pray about it. And sure enough, the next day I was having my coffee in the morning, and I loved doing crafts and paint your own pottery with my kids. And I realized that since that journey had begun, I always gravitated to the same mugs that had the handprints of my kids on it, because it helped me to remind myself why I was fighting, why I wanted to be well, and that I needed to believe that God could heal me. And as I'm drinking from it and looking at this cup, I'm like, that's it. That is it. And that started the Believe mugs, where people in our community, and where they are painted, they're also distributed. So we now have people all over the United States. We work with pottery stores that we partnered with, and anyone can walk in, ask to paint a Believe mug, and they're listed on our website. We can do them at schools and at churches and at events, and you pay for your mug, and that store wraps them, and they get sent to a local cancer patient in the area. And we put in there the I Will Have No Fear prayer that Jimmy compiled for me during my first cancer diagnosis. And literally, as we started handing these out while in the waiting room waiting for my appointments, you could just see the fear diminishing and the hope rising. Someone painted this for me. So how much do I owe you? Like, no, it's free. And they're like tearing up because someone cared enough and thought about them enough to do that kind act for them. So it's just like that first moment, and the only word allowed on there is believe. There's so many powerful words, hope, joy, but the only word we have on there is believe, because we want people to be focused on believe that God can heal you, believe that there are people in this community that care about you and want you to be well. So that's how it began.
That's so incredible. I think, yeah, if you ever want to visit a modern house of mourning, as Solomon talks about in Ecclesiastes, I think the oncologist waiting room is probably a good place to start. And I think that that often means two things. Um, it's a place of, how do I say this? It's a place of great value, in that there is value in going through hard things, um, and at the same time, it's a place that is so often hopeless, and it's almost losing that value or missing out on the value of being able to come alongside someone and walk through a hard journey with them, or encourage them, or be just a part of that journey. um, I think that's really beautiful what you started with, that really just
Mhm.
brings that hope and brings that connection that says this is a place of value, and what you're going through has value, and there is hope to be found here. I think that's really great.
Thank you. And yes, and I think another thing that really shocked us is that we didn't realize how many people are sitting there alone. I
Yeah,
mean, I had a tremendous support system. I know Rachel does too. And
yeah,
I was just like, so many people alone.
yeah,
And so this again is a tangible way that someone doesn't have to feel alone.
yeah, yeah. It's very
Mhm.
isolating going through something really extreme medically, which I think just about every case of cancer would fall under that, but other things as well. We found that, being young, and you would have found that as well. A lot of cancer statistics, even, but just resources and even focus groups out there are all in the like 50 plus range. The kind of expectation is you don't get cancer until you're in your 50s or 60s. At least that's how you think as a 20 or 30 something. And so, in particular, there's a loneliness associated with, oh, none of my friends are where I'm at
Mm.
emotionally, or the journey that I'm going through. And so, again, establishing that connection becomes just so important.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
cool. Well, where did you transition, or not transition, but add to that as a foundation, the Believe mug and bringing hope? How did you move into, maybe a little more of the medical realm, that Believe Big offers, not in terms of treatment, but
Yes.
information?
Yeah. So, at first I thought that's all we were going to do, delivering Believe mugs to patients. And my husband and my best friend, she was like, there's more here.
Mm,
There's more. And, through that process, as we kept praying, people kept coming after hearing my story. Who did you go see? And, oh, we're in California. Is there a doctor here that can help me? And so then it started to build a network of physicians that were not only trained in integrative oncology, but that also knew mistletoe therapy that could
mm,
help patients no matter where they were in the United States, and not just in the Baltimore, Maryland area that I was in. And so it became that. And then we merged into, once I was at my 2 years NED, no evidence of disease, of my first cancer, my oncologist, who was also the lead researcher at Johns Hopkins, he said, okay, this is monumental, that you're here, no evidence of disease, and with the quality of life you have.
mhm,
And I said, and throughout the years, I kept telling him, we need to study mistletoe. It needs to be made available to everyone, and not just those who find out about it or can afford it. And he was like, well, Ivelisse, he goes, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic. And then
Maybe we'll
literally
make
at the
it.
2 year, yes. And at the 2 year mark, he's like, okay, we're ready to do the study.
Mm,
So Believe Big merged into a funding source, because clinical trials are typically funded by pharmaceutical companies. We had to raise the money for it.
mhm,
And so natural therapies, many people are like, why aren't there so trials on natural therapies, and why don't I have the research? Well, it's because it is not covered.
mm,
Pharma companies have the money to invest in them. And so we actually did runs and dinners and private donations, and it was really a grassroots effort. And we raised the funds in order for Johns Hopkins to do the trial on mistletoe therapy. And it was the very first
yeah.
one done here in the United States. And at that time, we also were putting together key questions to ask oncologists and information on complementary therapies like nutrition therapies.
Mhm,
And over the years, we included things like our podcasts and our webinars, and emotional and spiritual support through support groups and prayers and the Believe mugs. So it just kind of has merged through that time frame.
Well,
Yes.
that's awesome. The kind of
Yes.
natural progression. I think we found something similar that whatever we would share about Rachel's journey, we uh, our maybe public engagement started with really her and I blogging personally on her website, and just our journey, just weekly, because we did do chemo. We did low dose metronomic chemo, so different than maybe the standard American, but still would be considered Western medicine, but in a very integrative way. And so week by week, as we would go through that, we would be blogging and sharing about those things, and pretty instantly the questions come. Hey, I'm in Texas. How do I get a hold of a doctor like that? How do I, who can I reach out to? What supplements are you on? What's your I just got diagnosed. Do you have time to talk? And I don't think we had expected that. It's really started with just we're sharing with our friends and family and church community what's going on in our lives. But as we recognized, like, oh, there is a significant need here. You talked about, Jimmy doing a lot of research while you were sleeping. That was me. That was my role. And so even just recognizing the skill set of research doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. And when you just got diagnosed and you are lonely, you don't have a really solid community around you. It's just a breeding ground for I don't have the tools to figure it out, and so I'm overwhelmed. So I'm just going to do whatever my first doctor I talk to says, and because I just can't wrap my brain around anything more than that. And so having an organization like Believe Big that starts to meet that need, that just says, hey, we're not going to tell you what you should do, but we are going to help narrow down some of the options, give you some meaningful information, not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally as well, to say, hey, here's a starting point. I think that's really powerful. Even in our experience, that's powerful.
Aw. Yeah, and I think what we've discovered over the years too is that, people are coming from all over the world, or, our offices are closed, or your time, I wish I could speak to every patient and every
Mm.
loved one, but it's, managing our own self-care, managing our own ability to help. And so what we've done is we've kind of expanded our time, and last year we actually came out with a project that we completed called I Have Cancer Now What video series.
Mm.
And it's a free resource, and it's separated into 5 short 5-minute videos on what to do once you're diagnosed.
Mm.
And so and it has resources linked below to each based on the
Hmm.
video
Hmm.
underneath. So it's in a segment. So like the first one is the overwhelm. The second one is how to build your support team, how to
Mm.
build your treatment team, tools for a strong mindset and emotions, and how to be spiritually healthy.
Mm.
And so those are the videos that came out. And what I love about it is that when someone comes and reaches our website, or someone needs help, they get it at the exact moment they need it. They don't have to wait till the next day or their sleepless night. They can get those resources immediately in a way they can digest and start their journey to healing.
That's so great. And I'll make sure to
Mm.
link below to those resources as well,
Yeah.
because I think that's
Okay, great.
just so often what somebody needs is just somebody to say, okay, breathe, let's start. That's it.
Yes.
Breathe and let's start.
Yes.
And people can't necessarily read the 300-page detailed
Yeah.
book on what somebody else did. It needs to be
Yes.
bite size. I'm telling on myself that I haven't seen those resources, so I'm excited now coming out of this
Oh,
conversation to
good.
go find those and see that
Good.
project out there. So that's awesome.
Good, good.
So if people want to get involved and help, uh, what are some ways that they can do that? We talked about the mug program, the Believe mugs, and that's, I'm assuming, linked on your website. Of, hey, I want to paint a mug. How can I do that? Or
Yes.
I want to send a mug. What does that look like? Um,
Yes.
but what other ways can people get involved if they want to help?
Yeah, so, we have different events that we have, but I guess the biggest need is that this side of care, and a lot of people don't realize, is not covered by insurance.
Mm,
Until the mistletoe clinical trial, all phases are completed, and we're raising the $1 million now for phase two, and it can't begin until we raise all million. Um, then it can't be covered by insurance,
mm,
and it can't even be offered by or suggested by a conventional oncologist because all three phases haven't been completed. Some people think, well, phase one's done, we can prescribe it. No, it is available in the United States because it's under the homeopathic pharmacopoeia,
mhm,
and there are doctors who are trained in it. But in order for insurance coverage for many of these modalities, a lot of patients don't have the resources.
mhm,
So if people who are listening would love to pay it forward or support a patient on their journey, even $200 will help to pay for half an appointment to
mm,
see an integrative doctor from for a patient. Uh, you know, Someone can support a patient with 3 months of mistletoe or a nutrition grant. I think that that is just such a huge, tangible way. Last year, we gave over $107,000 in grants to patients who
mm.
couldn't afford care.
That's
So,
incredible.
and hopefully this year we'll be able to give a lot more. But
Mhm.
we're all donation based, and so it would really help to be able to pay it forward and continue to help more patients this coming year.
That's great. If somebody wanted to host an event, a
Yes.
fundraising event, what does that look like? What options or resources do you have to help with
Yeah,
that?
so we have fundraising pages that can be set up. If you go onto our believebig.org, go to volunteer, and there are many ways that you can set up a fundraising page. Let's say you're going to run a marathon or you're going to run a 5K and you want to raise funds for Believe Big. We have people who do that, and then after the race, they collect from friends and family, and then they donate those funds to us. We have people who have direct sale businesses like Mary Kay or Pampered Chef,
Mhm,
and they do a show and they say the proceeds are going to go to Believe Big and patients that they serve. And so then they donate that. There are people who have hosted just a dinner at their home, share about what we do,
mhm.
and donate that way as well. So there are many ways using your gift. And we had someone who sold sunflowers. Kids volunteered. They went and got sunflowers and sold them to neighbors. And then, because our logo is a sunflower,
Yep, yep.
and then they donated the proceeds from those sunflowers to help patients. So
That's so
people
cool.
can get as creative or as
Yeah,
they'd like using their gifting.
yeah. But the big thing is it's not just you need to have resources to donate yourself. You can get involved by just helping get the word out there, hosting an event,
Yes.
going and painting a mug. These are ways that people, if they're catalyzed by this story, that they can go get involved today.
Yes, and even following us on social media, like as you found as well, because the more followers you have, the more visibility you
Mhm.
have. And so I think even sharing our post with other people and getting other people engaged and knowing about us also is so powerful because we have so many people now that are saying, I am so glad I knew about Believe Big before my friend or my mom or my sister's diagnosis because now I know what to do.
Yeah,
So you're helping your friends by letting them know what's available before the overwhelm or the hurricane of
yeah.
cancer can come through and take over.
Yeah, it's such a good recommendation to just get the word out there, allows people to get to that I have cancer, now what series and other resources. Yeah, it's a
Yes.
great suggestion.
Yes. And all of our resources are free to patients just so that people know everything that we offer is free. When we partner with another organizations, there might be a charge.
Mm,
So we're doing a 1 day retreat on emotional healing with our friends at Soul Shepherding. And there's a charge to that, but we have scholarships.
mm.
So if there is a need, just let people know that everything is available, even our patient advocacy time, so they can call with peace of mind, not knowing that they're going to be asked for money
Yeah,
or
yeah.
payment.
And that in this world, in the cancer world, it's so hard because it feels like there's so many people that are, as my father-in-law would say, money grubbing. They're just, it's just like, hey, I want to help, but that's, $40 an hour for me to take that call or whatever it might be, or buy my
Yes.
supplement line and it'll cure your cancer.
Yes.
That's so difficult to navigate, and so often you have to almost start the conversation with, "I'm not wanting your money. Now that we've established that, let's talk. How can I help?" You know.
Yes. Yes.
So that's good to get out there right now that that the resources are for the benefit of people who need them, and that's
Yes.
it. And I think that's
Yes.
great. That's awesome. Well, Ivelisse, thank you. I'm excited for what has been going on with Believe Big, the things that are available kind of today for anyone who's going through a cancer diagnosis or who is a caretaker. In our next topic, I'm really excited to dive into what's next. What do you have as vision for Believe Big? But also, I think your vision goes beyond just the organization into the cancer world as a whole. And so in our next conversation, we will dive into that. But in the meantime, thank you so much again for being with us.
Yes. Thank you for having me.